before, we're going to build a kind of a movie app, and we're just going to focus on one screen today. I'm going to break this into 3 sections. So we're going to start with the top section first, which is here, kind of like the featured view. And it's actually the wrong view. I just realized I put the wrong one in. We're going to put the thumbnails on the bottom rather than on the side. But this is doable. I actually have this version too, but I'm only going to show the thumbnails on the bottom. Then we're going to move to continue watching, which is going to be a scroller that goes from left to right horizontally, and it will show kind of like what Netflix does, which is whatever you're currently watching, what season you're on, what your progress is, that kind of thing. And then lastly, we're going to work on this browse channels. And as you can see here, it's going to display in a horizontal fashion, but when we go to the phone, we're going to make it so that it flips to a vertical side. So let's look at kind of how that works. So as you can see in the simulators here, this right here kind of shows you where we're going to go today. So you can see that we have our thumbnails underneath the main image, and we have this scroller that's going across, and that will be sort of what we build there. And then here we'll see the browse by channels. And again, you can see that the channels are displaying in a horizontal state, but on the phone, they're displaying vertically. So the phone basically kind of the same view. You see a little bit less of the items, but I think you kind of get the hint and where we're going tonight. So again, we're going to start firstly with working on the header part, which is here, and we're just going to get this going. So let's work it and let's do it. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And here we go. So just a little bit of a preview of what's in the starter project and what we're going to do today. So we have the assets inside of the preview assets. Since this isn't a live project, or even if I was working on this as a submission to the App Store, I would put anything that I want to do and want to see in previews in this particular asset folder. So you'll see that there's nothing in assets, and that basically means when the project gets built, none of these assets or images will be included in the project. All of our colors are set up in themes. We have some font utilities, custom font, palette color, and rounded corner fonts. If you want more information on that, I have a video. You can jump to it later. And rounded corner, it just basically allows us to add a rounded corner to any side of the rectangle we want. And that's pretty much it. So we have our views. I have everything pretty much set up, ready to go. So the first thing that we are going to start with here tonight is we're going to do featured list view, and we're going to work that first. So let's see how that is going to happen. And then we'll go from there. Sorry, just getting ready. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete this text, and we're going to create a VStack. And inside of the VStack, we're going to basically put all of our stuff in it. So we want an image, and in here, we're going to have the Mandalorian landscape, but I'm not going to type that. So I'm just going to copy that image here and put it in. So that'll save, refresh, and we should see that in previews. Boom. All right, and let's close this side. So here we have our first image, and of course we need to resize it because it's a little too big. And we also want to add a corner radius to it. So we're going to do corner radius, and we're going to set it to 5. And here's the part that we kind of need, which is the aspect ratio. Here, this will basically change it based on layout. So we're going to keep it at a 16:9. And content mode is going to be fit. All right. So that way we are good here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create an H stack for our bottom images, and we're just going to add an image for each one. So we have an image, and again, we're going to do the Mandalorian landscape, and we're going to just put 3 more images there. One is going to be dark, the show, and the shy will be the third. So you can see right now, all of these images are kind of not fitting the screen. And I'm right now I'm rolling with iPad as the simulator, but let's do, let's change this to be preview layout dot fix size. And we'll say that the width is 500 and the height is 300. I might have to adjust that later. And then in order to make that work, we have to click on this button. And of course, nothing in this at this point actually works right now. So what we have to do is we're going to do a resizable. We're really going to add the same sort of concept here, which is resizable, corner radius, content fit. So we can just add those 3 items here and here and here. And now we can see that our image fits and everything fits within the actual params that we're looking for. We can also take in this V stack. I'm going to go ahead and minimize it just so I can see if I have the right one. And I'm going to add some padding and make it horizontal and save that. So that's all we have to do here. This part is pretty easy. We're not doing anything special. We'll let the device take care of it from there. So if I rock this on the iPad and hit play, we can go back to the simulator and it will pull up, and it probably won't show anything because I didn't set it up for this. So let's update content view to say featured list view for now. And let's run it again. Sorry about that. And now we have it. And so you can kind of see that it's there. And let's see what happens if we run it on an iPhone. We'll stop and run it and let it go. And now you can see that it's fitting on both devices. So we've got a little bit of tweaking to do, but for what we're looking for, this is basically the direction we want to go. We have it working on an iPhone. We have it working on an iPad. If I rotate it, it'll work there too. I'm not going to rotate the devices today, but if you want to pull it up in the simulator, you can. The completed project will show you. So now that we have our featured list done, we're going to then move on to our continue watching section. And we're going to create a model structure for this just so that we can make it a little easier to pass data through it. So I'm going to create a new group, and I'm going to call it model, and right click and create a new file. And I'm going to create a movie. And here I'm going to, so in this, we're going to do a couple things. So we just need to create a struct. So it's not that difficult. And we're going to say that it's a movie. And we're going to subclass identifiable. And we only need really 3 things. We have a logo, we have an image, and we have a ID that we basically need to create. So we're going to say let ID first. So let ID equals UUID parenthesis. We're going to say let image is a string, and then let logo is a string. So pretty simple. That's our movie first. So now we can go ahead and move to the continue watching view. And actually we can go to continue watching, and we will work on firstly the watch. So before we get to doing everything first, we need to create an item so each one can be used, and that's what we're going to do next. So let's go into watch item view, and we're going to say let movie is a movie. So we're going to pass in a movie into this view. And now is where we're going to create our stuff. So for preview, we're going to set the preview layout for a fixed width and height. And right now it's missing a parameter. And this is kind of what I like to do for all of my, whenever I create a struct in SwiftUI, I like to come in here and then do a static var, and it's going to be default equals, and then we're going to say self parenthesis and then image and logo. So what this allows us to do is it gives us an object we can use for previews, and we don't have, that way it's reusable rather than doing just setting an image and a default image in there and then having to do it each time. So here we're going to use the shy poster, and we're going to set the logo to Showtime. Oops, save it. And then we go back. Now we have to pass in our movie, and now we can just say movie default. And if we save it, now we'll have something in it once we start using our movie object. So pretty simple. Now we can go ahead and use our start working on our watch item. And there's quite a bit going on, so it's a little layered. So it'll take a couple minutes to get it done, but won't take very long. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create an overall Z stack. So I'm going to go ahead and command click on this and embed in Z stack. So that's our first one. And then we're going to create one more. So we're going to create a lot more, but we're going to create another one, and we're going to embed that into a Z stack. So what we can do here is we're going to set the alignment and we're going to set the alignment for this stack by doing alignment. And then we're going to say alignment horizontal is going to be center, and the vertical is going to be bottom. So that's where we are there. So that's good. Next thing we want to do is we actually want to create. So we're going to have the top portion. So if we go back to the design, and we're looking at the specs. So right now, there's a design spec folder, and that's what I'm displaying right now. So right now we have the image here, and that's great. And then we have our logo, and then this little underlay button, or this graphic underneath the logo, so the logo can be seen. And so we're going to work on the top portion first. So we're going to put that into a Z stack. So if we come back into our code, we're going to come in and we're going to embed in a Z stack. And we can go ahead and delete this text because we don't need it. And what we want here is we want an image, and we want to then layer sort of a background on that logo. So we have two images. The first one is going to be the movie image. So we're going to say movie.image. Good. And now from here, we want to obviously set it to resizable. And we want to set the aspect ratio is going to be set a little different than we did the first time. So we're going to do a 9:16. And we're going to set the content mode to .fill. All right. So let's refresh and see what's going on. And previews is taking a little time, so I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to do our frame. And I'm going to say that the minimum width of this is going to be 120. And the alignment is going to be to the top. Okay. So we have our preview. It's now working. And boom, here's our image. And it's rocking what we need. So we also want to mask the corner radius of this. So we can do this by using .mask. parenthesis rectangle. And then here we're going to do dot corner radius, and we're going to set it to 10. And then we're going to put the corners that we want our corner radius. So corners, and then we're going to do brackets and say dot top left and dot top right. All right, so that's good. And then we're going to set the background to clear. So I'm going to move this so it looks a little bit more readable. So we have our quarter radius here, and then we're going to say dot background color. Oops, it'd be good to put it inside of that. Color dot clear. All right. So now we have our image, and then the next step is we want to then create the logo on top of it. So we're going to add another Z stack on top of this, and we're going to put a rectangle, and it's by default black, so we don't have to do anything with the fill color. So we can do it there. And now we can do a frame, and we can say that the width is 55 and the height is 35. So right now, as you can see, it's in the middle of our screen. So we could do some offsets to get it to the upper left corner, but we also have alignment in Z-Stack that we can make it go to the upper left-hand corner for us. So let's do, did it a little differently in mine, but I'm gonna try something different. So alignment, and we're gonna do another alignment horizontally. So it's gonna be trailing, and then we're gonna say top. And I was thinking that might not work. So that one, we can just take all of that out of that Z stack, and we're gonna put it into the parent and paste it there. And now that moves it. So I'm gonna add a fill just so that you can see, because it's a little hard to see the color. So fill color.red. So now you can see that now our box is in the upper right-hand corner where it should be. And just, we're gonna go ahead and add an opacity to it. So we'll say opacity is 0.7, and that's good. Finally, we're gonna do our image logo. So we're gonna say movie.logo, and then we'll do resizable, and then frame, and then we're gonna set the width and the height. So the width is gonna be 50, and the height is gonna be 50. Oops, height 50. Okay, so there's our logo. I think I may have spelled it wrong, maybe. And then I'm gonna go ahead and delete this fill line so we can get rid of it. And movie.logo. Let's go see if maybe the logo is wrong. Showtime, that's right. Stack image. Huh, that's weird that it's not showing up. Let's hit refresh, replace, and then refresh. Yeah, that's odd. Okay, I'll figure that out in a minute. So we have our, oh, you know what? The opacity is good. The frame is good. I'm gonna switch the frame and the opacity, and then I'm gonna do a corner radius for this one with 10, and then I'm gonna add corners. And then for this corner, I'm just gonna do the bottom left so that that's rounded on there. And I'm not quite sure why the logo is not appearing. Okay, so we have our logo working. Let me just verify that it's in previews. And that's the reason why. So the logo is not in my project. So I will do that fix now. So in the Finder, there we go. that's why it wasn't appearing. So now if I refresh, as you can see, previews now shows the logo really tiny. Let's switch it to our size, and now we have Showtime showing up in the upper left. Okay. Glad it wasn't me going crazy. Okay. Now we can work on the bottom portion of our card. So we're going to add another Z stack, and I'm going to take this Z stack that's here and minimize it so we can kind of see what's going on. We have a Z stack and we don't need to add any alignment. We're going to do a color, and we're going to do a .base card background here. And then we're going to say edge, ignore safe area, and say all. Next, we want an H stack. Oops, here. And inside of this H stack, we're going to do text, and we're going to do two of them. The first one is going to just be S3, 3, and the second one is going to be S1. All right. So right now we can't see anything here, but if we look back at the design, we're trying to get this to be the S1 and the E3. I don't know why I said S3, but the S1 and the E3. So let's switch back and go into code and fix that. So we have, this should be E, and we're going to do some custom fonts. So we're going to just say font.custom. And then here we're going to say bold, and we're going to set it to 35. And we can just copy that and paste it, and we're going to do ultra light and also 35. And then we're going to set the foreground color to base light gray. And now we can see it. And so if we go back really quick and look at the design one more time, you'll notice that the S1 and E3 are basically lined up to each other. So we need to get rid of the spacing that's in there. So if we go back in our H stack, we have to just say spacing 0. And now we have the same thing. So this works, and that's good. Okay, so we have that. And now we just need to, inside of the Z stack, we're going to do another Z stack. Everybody gets a Z stack. Okay, so we're going to do an alignment here. And we're going to do leading. And we're just going to do, this is where we're going to do the progress. So we're going to do rectangle fill. And then we're going to do dot base light gray. And then from there, we're going to do another one. And this is going to be base light blue. And it's probably complaining because I need color. So we'll put color there. All right. And then and I spelled alignment wrong. That's another reason why it's not working. Okay, so here we have our rectangle, and we're going to say set our frame and set the width to 100. So there. So now we have this, and now we just need to fix the Z stack. And the first thing we want to do is set the frame height for both of these to be 7. And now that'll push them down. And then we're going to do an offset, and it's going to be Y minus 22. I wonder if, let's try something. So I'm going to see if I can make this work by saying leading and then bottom. Nope, I didn't think so. Okay, thought I would try that instead of having to use the offset. That's there. And then our Z stack is set up there. And then we have this other Z stack, and right now the color is covering. So we actually have to fix that. So we're just going to put a height on that and say 36. So now that pushes it down. This might need to be a bit taller. So 350 there. And this Z stack here, alignment is leading. Okay, so we now have this fixed. It's showing the correct thing here. And then finally, we want to throw a corner radius on the actual item. So we're going to say corner radius is 10 and corners is bottom left and bottom right for the corners. Bottom left, bottom right. There we go. So you can see here we have a corner radius at the top. I'm going to make this slightly bigger. So we're going to say, well, I think the image will grow, but let me change to 400. Yeah, it's going to change it no matter what. So we'll see it in the next spot, but we have a corner radius here. We have a corner radius here. We then have one at the bottom. So we're just basically butting the two together to kind of give the impression of a card. And our card is done. So now we can go into our continue watching and use it. So here's where we're going to start doing some stuff that we need to make it work for different views. We're going to start with just getting it to run first. And I did some changes to this. So I'm going to get rid of all of this and just do movies. So here's just a list of movies we're going to use. And we also want to use the horizontal and vertical classes. And that's how we're going to basically set up what we see in how many items we see. So the idea would be here on an iPad, we have the ability to see more content. And then on an iPhone, we have less. And so if here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we have 12 items. So I don't want to have 12 items on the phone. I mean, it could be there, but I just want to kind of show something different. So on the phone, I'm going to show less. I'm going to probably show maybe 4 of your past viewing. And then on the iPad, I'll let the 12 be the entire one, which will basically fill up the screen. So make it work. So first thing we need to do is we need to create our container. And in this particular case, we're going to create a VStack. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this text and do a VStack. And that's what we have there. So this VStack has an alignment for leading and spacing is 0. Right now, we'll just do it. And then I'll explain once we actually get some stuff and why I chose those. All right, so spacing is set to 0. Now we have another VStack inside of here, and it's actually the exact same thing. So I'm just going to copy this VStack and then paste it and makes it real easy. So we have 2 VStacks there, and then we have our HStack. And so let's go look at the design one more time, and just so we can kind of see what we're doing. So here we're going to display, we want to do this continue watching, and we want to have the text here, and then we put a divider underneath it, which you can barely see, and then we want the scroller. So that's what we're working on. So the first thing we're going to do is add continue watching. So let's go back, and in here we're going to have an HStack because continue watching is next to each other, and we're going to set the spacing to 0 because I like having text with thin and bold next to each other. I know I'm pretty bad, but that's what I do. So text, and then here we're going to say continue. I'm going to just let it be lowercase, continue. If I can spell tonight, that would be great. Watch. So I'm not going to do it as one. So we're going to copy and paste, and then we're going to say watching. Okay, so now we have that, and you can see here we have continue watching. So let's update this font to the new font. So we're going to do font.custom, and here I'm going to say .bold, and then size is 34. And I will go ahead and do dot uppercased there. Okay, so we can put that there and that there. And now I'm going to copy and paste it here. And then I'm just going to change this to ultralight. And now that's our title. So our title is done for this. And the next thing we want to do is we want to change this color. So we're going to go ahead and do foreground color dot base light gray. So the thing about using SwiftUI is the parent takes control. So rather than having to take foreground color and paste it to each one of these text views, which you can do, you can just simplify your life by just saying that the foreground color is on the H stack. Now, let's say you had more text and they all had base light gray. You can take it and move it even farther down the chain to a different parent. And then if you have other text views that have other colors, but majority of them, let's say 80% of them is gray, then whatever one you want to override, you can just override with the foreground color, and it will take that one instead of the parent one. So it's kind of good to be able to have control over stuff like that. Next thing we want to do is just add our divider. So divider, and then we're going to set padding to the bottom, and we're going to put that at 15. And we're going to do a foreground color of base light gray. So this one, we could technically move it out of this and put it here. And right now, that's probably hard to tell, but let's do a different color. Let's say red. And the divider is not changing colors, which it used to change colors. Let's see, foreground color. Let me see if I remember. And I know that this originally, when SwiftUI came out, you couldn't change the color. And I might just be doing it wrong on this. So it's not that. Not quite sure why that's not working anymore. I'll figure it out, and I'll post an update in the code so that way you can see it. I know that you can modify the divider colors now. I just don't remember the way to do it. Okay, so we have our padding, we have our color, and we have this V stack here that is, we can just move this back to the H, and then we can set the padding to dot horizontal, and we can set this to 20. So now we have the padding on both sides, which is what we need. And then finally, we want to add our scroller and add the contents in it. So we're going to use Soze classes to make this work. And I feel like this is the easy way to do it. So for now, let's simplify this code. We're going to have a large scroller, small scroller, whatever variable you want to use. I'm going to say var, we're going to say short scroller. And that's going to just dictate the number of items in it. And then we're going to say some view. Okay, so in here, we're going to create a scroll view. And we're going to make it horizontal and show indicators false. I know. H stack, spacing, and we're going to set that to 15. And then we're going to do a for each here. And then we're going to say array, parenthesis, movies, dot prefix 4. So we're just going to take 4 out of that array. And then we're going to do movie in. And we're going to do a watch item view, which takes a movie and passes it through. Okay, so that's all we have to do there. And then our H stack needs a little padding. So we're going to say padding dot horizontal and set that to 20. So now we have this short scroller. So we're on an iPhone anyways, so it works. So let's go ahead and put that. We have our divider. And right here, here we go. So if we scroll, we can see now we have we have 4 items, even though we have more in the array. So we're just displaying the scroller with 4. And that's all really what we have to do. But we want to target each of the different devices, and there's a lot to type, so I'm not going to type each one, but I will explain each one that happens. So the first one we want to support is the iPhone portrait and the iPad that's split into 1/3. So I'm going to create that if statement here and then run that here. So here we're going to do vertical size class is equal to regular and horizontal size class is equal to compact. So that, again, I'm going to leave a comment in the code so you can see it. And that will support anything that's an iPhone portrait or iPad that's sharing another view with an app. So we can put short scroller into that one. Now, well, the next thing we want to do is we want to do the standard iPhone landscape, which is all of pretty much SE, XXS, S8, and et cetera, and we want to support anything that's landscape on those devices. So to do that, we'll add this else if space and there. Okay. So this one also will get the short scroller because we're still on an iPhone, even though it's landscape, we still keep 4 items in. And now that is here. So again, this one supports the iPhone landscape. Let me put it inside of there instead, and I'll move this one inside of here. So we have our scroller. We need to do one more. So I'm gonna just copy this, and I'm gonna do, instead of saying short, I'm just gonna call it scroller. And instead of doing this array, I'm gonna just get rid of it and do movies. So that'll be everything. And oops, parenthesis. And we don't need to do anything else. So now we have a scroller here. So finally, our last 2 instances, we have the bigger iPhone landscape. So let's say the iPhone XS Max, the 6S, the 6S Plus, the 7 Plus, the 8 Plus, all of those. So to get those, we want to show, we can show more content on these. So we can set this here. So we have that one is going to be compact and regular. And again, this is anything landscape that has to do with any of the larger phones. So here we'll just say we want to do a scroller. Done. All right. And then we have one final one, which is anything that's macOS or iPad without split view happening. So right now we're obviously not running a Mac app, but this will still work. And then again, full screen iPad. So here again, scroller will work with all 12 of the items. And again, I'll put the comment in here so you can see the difference between these and how each one of these works. So the first one will support anything iPhone portrait, or basically an iPad, which is really an iPhone at 1/3. We have the iPhone landscape. We'll still do the short scroller. We then move to the bigger iPhone landscapes. That will be a scroller, the larger one, and then the Mac OS or the iPad without a split view, and that will also get the larger one. Nothing's really going to change inside of here, so we don't have to worry about that. So we know that the scroller works. If I wanted to, I could probably just do scroller and save, and then now you'll get every single one. So you can see here, we can see that it works on both. You can see the logos on all of them. Everything is good there. So I'm going to go ahead and convert that back to short scroller, and we are good. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to move on to the next part. So we did our continue watching. We've done our featured list. Now we just have our browse view, which is our last view that we're going to work on tonight. So let's go into browse view. And let's look at the design and just remember what we're doing here. So if we go into browse view, we can see that we're either we're just going to display these um, the kind of a logo browse by channel. So you can go by Disney, by HBO, and click on one of those. And if you go to the iPhone, we want it to then display in a horizontal way. And so the way that this is going to work is how many items we build across. So if we're going to build for the iPad, we want to basically build 4 items going across. And then once it goes to 4, it will then loop down to the next row. If we are building for the iPhone, we want to show 2 going across and then going to the next line. So that's what we're going to have to do when we code this. And let's get going. So let's go back to Xcode and let's get into the browse view. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to build that channel grid that we're going to use inside of the browse view. So we're going to open up Command-Shift-O and we're going to do channel grid view. All right. So we have a couple of variables we need, and I'm just going to bring those in so that you don't have to see me type. So we have a max width, a title font size, subtitle font size, a count. Here is by default 2. So this is what the count will be in regards to our grid. So by default, it'll build a grid row with 2 items before it goes to the next. And then we have our logos that we're going to display. So let's start with the main container. And here it's complaining, so we're going to go ahead and fix that first. So we can say max width, we'll set to like 150. We'll set the font size to 30, and we'll set the subtitle font to 24. So we'll see that all reflected here as we go. So we're going to command click and do embed in HStack, and we'll set the spacing to 0 and save. Next, we're going to command click and embed in ZStack. And then we have this text we don't need yet, so I'm just going to keep it there for now. Rectangle and dot fill. And this is color dot base charcoal. Save. And then we're going to do dot corner radius, and we're going to say 10, and then corners colon bracket dot top left dot top right. All right. So now we have our corner radius set for this one. And as you can see, we have them at the top and top left and top. I'm sorry, this is bottom left. Bottom. I thought that was weird. Bottom left. Okay, so we're basically putting it on the left side. So this is what this rectangle will be. And then for the Z stack, we're going to go ahead and set the frame here to max width. And we're going to set it to the max width variable. So now that will go down. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so now we have that. And inside of here, we're going to we can get rid of this I think we can get rid of it for now. Actually, we can keep it. Yeah, we can embed this into a VStack here. And we're going to do spacing, and we're going to set it to -14. And at the top of the VStack, we're going to put a spacer in. All right. And this one is going to be browse. And we can copy this, and we're going to do another HStack. Oops. And we're going to paste in 2 text views here. So now we're going to say browse and then by and then channel. All right. So here we're going to set our spacing to 0 again. And we can add a little space there. And we're going to do dot font, dot custom, and here we're going to say dot bold, and we're going to do the title font size for this one. We can copy this, and we're going to do we're going to set both of these to the same font, so we can just paste in here. Oops, missing a parenthesis, so it's complaining. And now I'll copy that. Did I do something? Custom font, custom. I did mess that up. Let me just fix it. Okay, so now we have our font here. We can copy, and we're going to put it on the H stack. And this is going to be subtitle font size. And this is ultra light. All right, so we have our channel here, and then we just need to add another spacer here. So we're going to make sure that it displays in the center. And right now you can't see it. So let's fix that. And we're going to set the foreground color to white. Boom. So we have our browse by channel that shows up. I'm going to... might look a little weird with the way that that's doing. I'm going to delete the spacing on there and just let the default spacing happen there. Okay. Change my mind. So we have that. And now we just need to create the grid that we're going to use. So we have our first Z stack, and I'm going to go ahead and minimize it down. And inside of here, we're going to do another Z stack. Boom. And we're going to do the same kind of thing we did before. So we're going to add a rectangle, and we're going to set the fill, and we're going to do color dot base dark gray. And now you can start to see it forming. And now we're going to do corner radius here. We're going to say 10. And then we're going to pick the corners we need. So we're going to say dot top left and dot bottom left for those. All right. So now I did top left and I did bottom left, and I probably did the wrong one. So it's top right and bottom right. So bottom right, and this is right, because that looks a little weird. All right, so now we have this box. It has this kind of two shaded element, and we have rounded corners on the outside. That's why it's particular. And that is where we're going to move on to the next section, which is we're going to, now that we have this, now we're going to add our grid. So let's do the grid next. So underneath the rectangle, we have another V stack here, and we're going to do a lazy V grid and say columns. And now we're going to do array repeating, and we're going to do dot init parenthesis dot flexible. And we're going to set the count to count, right? And then after this init method, after the init parenthesis flexible, we're going to do spacing is set to 5. Okay. Next, we need to add our curly brace. And now we have to add our for each. So we're going to say for each. And then inside of here, we're going to do logos, comma, ID, backslash dot self. And then we're going to say logo in. Okay. Now we're going to loop through our logos and create those. So we're going to create a Z stack Normally, if I usually when I do a for each, I usually create an item. I did not do that here, so ignore my lack of not being consistent. So we're going to say aspect ratio. We're going to do content mode dot fit. So that's there. And then, so we have so you can see now we have our logo, and let's do, I'm going to copy and I'm going to embed this into a VStack. Let's see if this works. Hit return, and that looks really weird. Let's try putting a spacer in there. Let's see if I can get it to show both views. Nope, it's not. So I'm not going to worry about it. Sorry. So if we wanted to, we can say count and we can say 4. And now that you can see how it changes. So that's the difference between showing 4 and showing 2. Okay. So now we have our circle and we just need to put our logo in. So we're going to say image, logo, resizable, boom, aspect ratio, and we're going to do content mode. Not fill, but fit. All right, so now you can see here, we're getting exactly what we're looking for. And we're gonna put a max width on this so that this doesn't grow, because if we don't put a max width on it, it's gonna take up all the available space. And we don't really want that in this particular case, but you may, if you wanna try it, you can see what it looks like. But I'm gonna set the max width and set it to 200. So boom, okay. Let's add a little bit of padding to this VStack. And finally, we're going to add some padding to the horizontal. So padding, horizontal, and we don't need a number. So boom. So now you can see how it's going here. So even though the height is a little much, we're on a really big phone and we can control it differently later. So we have our grid. And now let's go back to our browse view and let's actually add that now. So browse view, we're almost finished. So everything is done. And now we just need to kind of put it all together. So browse view, and we're going to use the same concept we did before with the horizontal and vertical classes. I'm actually not going to break that down since I already did it earlier, but it's going to be the same 4 if statements, if else's. So I'm just going to bring all of those in as at once. So you can see there, and you can see here, this is the phone and it's going to only show 2 grids, and then all the other devices pretty much are going to show 4. I wonder if I can say, no, I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to experiment. Okay, so we have that working. For some reason, it doesn't want to display here, so we're not going to worry about it. And all we need to do now is fix content view, and we can see it working in the sim. So we'll run it to content view, and what we'll do is featured list is going to be used. So we'll just hit command and we'll say Z stack, and then I'm going to say command embed in, and we're going to say scroll view. Okay, and then I'm going to command again and embed in VStack and set the spacing to 20. Okay, so we have our featured, right? And then we have 2 more things. So we have our featured, and then we have our continue watching view, and then we have our browse view. Boom. So all 3 things are there, and we can go ahead and put a color in the background. So we'll do color.base background there, and we want it to fill the screen. So we're going to add the edge ignore and the all, and now it's filling the entire screen. So here you can see now we have our logo. It's showing appropriately the way we want. And we can actually go into portrait and change the orientation And I'm going to change the device here just so you can see it. So you can see here, it's a really big landscape. And then if I scroll, you can see more of the items here. And on the iPad, we get this going across here, making it look a little bit different than what we did. But the work was very minimal to make this happen on both devices. So that's how that's working. So we have pretty much what we need. I'm going to just update some of the padding here just because I'm not going to leave you with that. So I'm just going to copy and paste that and replace. So we adjust the padding and add a little bit of spacing to each of the different things that we need. But as you can see, it works here. So I'm going to run this in the simulator and we're going to switch back over and the simulator will run. And you can see here that it works just like it did. So that's the large one. And then I'm going to then switch it back over to the iPhone and replace and then let you see that. And I'll keep the one for the iPad up. And you can see iPad is working. So iPad and then iPhone. And again, you can see here where we added a little bit of a variation to here. You could play with this and make a different layout for the iPad versus the iPhone for like even the header, but I didn't do that. I figured you could get the example of what we did here and make it work. So that's pretty much it. It's kind of what I wanted to show tonight. You can do a little bit of stuff without having to do the view that fits. Now, the reason I didn't use view that fits, and I will do a video on that, is because when you use view that fits in a scroll view, it changes its behavior. And so I need to play with the view that fits a bit more and find some use cases where it'll actually work the way I expect it. But when I use view that fits, it just didn't work the right way. So I just didn't show it this week, but I will eventually. And I really do appreciate you guys coming. And I see that Mike is saying that he likes the Soze classes. Um, yes, it is pretty rad. And you can, like I said, you can use view that fits. I would mess around with that and you can use them interchangeably. But this will really give you the ability to kind of do different designs. One thing that I didn't show, but you can do a group. So you can put stuff in a group and then you can then dictate H stack versus V stack. So for example, you can create a variable. Let me show you really quick what I mean, because it is kind of confusing if I try to explain it. So let's say that you want to create var items, and then you do some view, and then in here we can say group. And then we can say, we can put in a bunch of stuff into the group. For now, I'm just going to put featured item view, feature list view, but this is just an example. And then let's say that I wanted, like, I'm going to just comment this out really quick. And if I put in this into a VStack and then say items and then save it and reload, you'll see that this is now working this way. That looks really weird. So it's vertically, right? So what if, let me change actually to portrait, and then that won't look so weird. Okay, so we have them 4 stacked here. But if you take it and you put it into an H stack, you can do it the other way. So by putting stuff into a group, you can then control the main container. So you can then use Soze classes to say on like, for example, on the iPad, I'll do a V stack, but on the iPhone, I'll do an H stack, and you just put all of the related items into one group, and then you can then just use the variable in different one and interchange it. So it's a really cool feature. Not a lot of people use it. Haven't seen many use it. So I just thought I would throw that out there as well. I'll try to do that in another video to bring that up again, but that's how that works. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to throw them in. And again, thanks for coming to the live stream. Again, I will be here weekly to throw some nuggets out there that I hope that you can get, and get better at doing some of the design when you have it. You have the design specs in the folder, so if you want to just test yourself and see if you can figure things out, you have the starter project and the designs. Have at it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to throw the comments in even after the stream. I will answer all comments. So I hope you guys got something out of it. And again, thank you for being here. Thanks, Eugene. Thank you, Alandis. Thank you, Mike. I'm not sure who else is here. You're not speaking, so I can't see you. So whoever else is here, I appreciate you being here. And again, have a great night. Thanks, Steven. Just caught you. I appreciate you coming tonight. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Bring your friends next week. Again, thanks, Landis. I appreciate it. You have a good night too, man. All right. If no one has any questions, I'm going to then bounce. But again, please throw them in the comments if you want, and I will answer them after.